In the quiet market town of Ashford, nestled in the rolling English countryside, Emily had stepped into married life with a hopeful heart. Newlywed and still adjusting to the rhythms of her new home, she found herself faced with an unexpected complication: her brother James. From the moment she married, something about the way James looked at her changed. It was subtle, yet unmistakable, and it left Emily puzzled and uneasy. James had always been a protective older brother, but now his visits to Emily's modest flat on Mill Lane became almost daily. At first, Emily tried to welcome him warmly, but his presence felt overwhelming. He arrived with the kind of frequency that could rival the postman, and each time, Emily found herself hurriedly changing clothes or covering up, trying to reclaim a sense of privacy in her own home. One evening, after a family dinner, just Emily and James sharing a simple roast chicken meal, she suggested she would head to bed early. "You're going to bed already? We hardly get to spend time together," James teased, flashing a grin that was equal parts mischievous and concerned. Emily, still in her soft cotton nightdress with delicate lace trimming, felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "But you're always here, James. And Tom's away on business, so often I'm barely used to being alone." James, tall and lean with a hint of stubble that made him look older than his 32 years, shrugged. "I'm just looking out for you, You know that, right?" His voice was warm, but there was a new edge, something she couldn't quite place. Tom, Emily's husband, was a successful solicitor frequently away on cases across the country. He was charming in his tailored suits and polished shoes, but his absences left Emily vulnerable in ways she hadn't anticipated that night. As Emily settled between the crisp white sheets of their bed, Tom called. His voice was a lifeline, a balm to her loneliness. "I miss you," he said. "I'll be home soon," she smiled, clutching the phone tightly. "I miss you too. It's been so long." Just as she ended the call, a knock came at her door. It was James. "I need to talk to you," he said quietly. Emily's heart raced. "What is it?" "I'm tired. I know it's important." Just a few words. She adjusted the hem of her nightdress and opened the door. The dim light cast shadows that softened James's usually sharp features. He looked serious, almost vulnerable. "I heard everything you said to Tom on the phone," James confessed, his voice low. "Everything?" Emily blinked, stunned. "How? Why would you listen to that?" James ran a hand through his hair, the familiar nervous gesture. "Because I'm your brother. I can't ignore it. I overheard you talking about how lonely you feel, how much you need him. I just wanted to make sure you're all right." Emily crossed her arms, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. "You had no right to spy on me. And now you say things like that? I'm your sister, James." "Exactly," he said firmly. "And because I'm your brother, I can't let you be in pain, especially when Tom's not around." For a moment, silence hung between them like a thick fog. Emily wanted to push him out, slam the door, but something stopped her. This wasn't like him. She told him sharply, "I need boundaries, James. This isn't appropriate." "I know," he said softly. "I'm sorry. I'm scared for you." Emily closed the door gently but firmly. As she leaned against it, she realized that James had changed, and she wasn't sure if it was for better or worse. The next morning, James stopped coming by. The silence between them stretched longer than either expected. Their mother noticed and asked Emily, eyes full of concern, "What's going on with James? He hasn't visited in weeks." Emily shrugged, masking the turmoil inside. "I don't know. Maybe he's busy with work." But the truth was more complicated. Tangled in unspoken words and uneasy glances. Days turned into months. Emily tried to move on, focusing on her marriage, but the memory of that night lingered like a shadow. Then out of the blue, a message from James appeared on her phone. He wanted to meet. He had something important to say. Something that might change everything. As Emily prepared to see him again, she couldn't shake the feeling that the calm was just the eye of the storm. And when she opened the door that evening, the look in James's eyes was no longer brotherly concern. It was something else entirely. The air between them crackled with unspoken secrets, and Emily knew her life in Ashford was about to take a dramatic turn. The early evening sun cast long shadows over the cobbled streets of Ashford, as Emily made her way to the little cafe where James had asked to meet her. The air smelled faintly of freshly baked bread from the bakery next door, and the distant hum of traffic was softened by the rustling leaves of the old oak trees lining the square. She felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread twisting in her stomach, a feeling she hadn't experienced since the night he'd confessed overhearing her call with Tom. Emily had chosen her outfit carefully. A knee-length emerald green dress that hugged her slender frame just enough to accentuate her curves without being overt, paired with a delicate silver locket resting against her collarbone, catching the light as she moved. Her chestnut hair was loosely pinned back, a few soft tendrils framing her lightly freckled face. Her shoes, modest yet elegant black ballet flats with tiny bows, tapped quietly against the pavement as she approached the cafe inside. The small room was warm and inviting, filled with the murmur of quiet conversations and the comforting aroma of coffee and cinnamon. James was already there, seated in a corner booth, his usual casual shirt replaced by a crisp white button-down that made him look unexpectedly polished. His dark hair was neatly combed back, and his blue eyes, usually sharp and teasing, now held a seriousness that made Emily's heart flutter. "Emily," he greeted, standing up to pull out a chair for her. "Thanks for coming," she smiled, taking the seat, and then glanced down at the menu, though she wasn't really interested in ordering. "You sounded urgent in your message. What's going on, James?" He hesitated, running a hand over his jaw. "I owe you an explanation. About that night." Emily arched an eyebrow. "You mean the night you barged into my room after I'd just spoken to Tom?" James chuckled softly, the tension easing just slightly. "Yeah, that one. I've been a bit of a mess, ever since you got married, I guess. I've realized how much I've missed having you around. And maybe I didn't handle it very well." Emily's cheeks warmed. "Missed me? You were showing up every day like a nosy neighbor on steroids. I wasn't sure if you were visiting or spying." James laughed, a genuine easy sound. "I suppose it did come off a bit creepy. Sorry about that. But there's something else. Something I didn't tell you because I was afraid of what you'd think." Emily leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "Now you've got me hooked." Spill. He took a deep breath and looked around as if ensuring no one was eavesdropping. "When Tom and I were kids, we used to play football in the park. One day, Tom got into a fight with some older boys. I stepped in and got hurt protecting him. Ever since then, I've felt a responsibility to look after both of you. But after your wedding, I felt pushed out." Emily's brows knitted. "Pushed out?" "Yeah," James admitted. "You and Tom have your life now. I'm just the brother who's a bit too protective. I guess I was trying to keep that connection alive, but I went about it the wrong way." Emily's lips curved in a soft smile. "You could have just sent a text. Maybe asked how I was." James grinned sheepishly. "True, but then I wouldn't have gotten to see you in that green dress." She chuckled, the tension between them momentarily lifting. But then James's tone turned serious again. "There's more. Last week I saw someone outside your building. Someone watching you." Emily's heart skipped. "What? Who?" James shook his head. "I don't know. But it wasn't random. I think someone's trying to get to you. Maybe even Tom." Emily's fingers trembled slightly on the table. "Why would anyone want to hurt Tom or me?" "Business, maybe. Tom's work sometimes puts him in dangerous spots. It's why he's away so often." Emily swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the vulnerability that had been hidden behind the quiet life she'd thought she was living. "Thank you for telling me. I guess I never realized how much you still care." James reached across the table, his hand briefly covering hers. "Always, You're my sister. Nothing will ever change that." Emily's heart pounded, the closeness stirring a confusing mixture of comfort and something deeper, more complicated. She pulled her hand back gently, feeling the weight of the moment settle between them. Just then, a loud crash came from the kitchen, startling the patrons and drawing curious glances. Emily and James turned toward the commotion to see a waiter sprawled on the floor. A tray of cups shattered around him. "Well," James quipped with a grin, "I hope that wasn't a sign of things to come." Emily laughed, the sound light and carefree, though her mind was racing. She knew deep down that this evening was only the beginning of something far more intense, and far more dangerous, than either of them had anticipated as they left the cafe together. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in a dusky glow. Emily glanced back toward the street she called home, a shiver running down her spine. Somewhere in the shadows the watcher lurked, and the mystery was just beginning. The question was, how much longer could she trust James and herself before everything came crashing down? The following days in Ashford unfolded like a tense symphony composed in whispers and wary glances. Emily found herself caught between the familiar warmth of family ties and the unsettling shadows cast by James's warnings. The green dress she'd worn to the cafe now hung neatly in her wardrobe, untouched, as if the fabric itself sensed the storm brewing beneath the surface of her quiet life. Emily tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. She pored over Tom's work emails when they arrived, ensuring she was up to date, hoping that knowledge might serve as a shield. Yet, every ring of the doorbell sent a jolt of anxiety through her. What if it were the stranger James had seen? What if her life, carefully stitched together over months, unraveled in a single moment? One chilly Tuesday evening, as rain pattered softly against the windowpanes of her flat, Emily prepared for a rare night out. She had agreed to attend a charity gala in the town hall, a chance to support a local cause and selfishly, to remind herself of the life she'd chosen. Carefully, she selected a deep navy blue dress, the fabric shimmering subtly under the soft light. The cut was daring yet elegant, hugging her waist before flaring slightly at the knees. Her black suede heels clicked confidently against the wooden floor, and a delicate pearl necklace rested just above the neckline, catching the light with every turn of her head. Her makeup was understated but enhanced her striking green eyes, and her auburn hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders. She locked the door behind her. A sudden chill crawled up her spine. She glanced down the street, half expecting to see a shadow lurking, but the street lamp's glow illuminated only the usual quiet neighborhood scene. "Get a grip, Emily," she murmured, shaking off the unease. The gala. The hall buzzed with the chatter of Ashford's well-heeled residents. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting prismatic light across the polished wooden floor. Emily moved through the crowd with practiced ease, exchanging polite smiles and nods. She spotted James near the bar, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him in weeks. His dark suit was impeccably tailored, and a mischievous glint danced in his eyes as he caught her gaze. "Fancy seeing you here," he said, weaving through the guests to stand beside her. Emily smiled, feeling the familiar flutter in her chest. "Well, someone has to keep an eye on the town's charity events." James laughed, a rich, warm sound that made heads turn. "And here I thought you'd prefer a quiet night in." "Not tonight," Emily replied, her voice soft but confident. "Tonight I need a little distraction." As the evening wore on, they exchanged stories and laughter. The weight of recent tensions momentarily lifted. But beneath the surface an unspoken question lingered. How much of James's concern was born from brotherly love, and how much from something more complicated? Later, as the gala wound down and guests began to drift away, Emily found herself alone on the balcony, the cool night air brushing against her skin. She wrapped her shawl tighter, gazing out over the twinkling lights of Ashford. That a sudden presence startled her. "Enjoying the view?" She turned to find James standing close, his eyes searching hers. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Not as beautiful as you," he said softly. Emily felt her breath catch. The line between sibling affection and something forbidden blurred dangerously. She took a step back, shaking her head. "James, we can't." He raised a hand, stopping her. "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know what's gotten into me." Before she could respond, a sharp noise echoed from inside the hall, a crash followed by hurried footsteps. They exchanged a glance and rushed back inside. The main room was in chaos. A large decorative mirror had shattered against the wall, glass glittering like ice across the polished floor. Guests murmured in alarm, and at the center stood a man disheveled and wild-eyed. Clutching a crumpled note, Emily's heart pounded. James moved to intercept him, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, you need to leave." The man's gaze flicked to Emily, a sinister smile curling his lips. "She's the one," he hissed. Time seemed to freeze. Emily looked to James, whose jaw clenched tightly. The danger was no longer distant. It had arrived at her doorstep. As security escorted the intruder away, Emily realized that the fragile piece she'd clung to was shattered. And in the shadows someone was watching, waiting for the next move. The question now wasn't just about trust, it was about survival. And Emily would have to decide who, if anyone, she could truly rely on before the darkness closed in. The tension in Ashford thickened like the fog rolling in from the nearby downs as Emily grappled with the chilling events at the gala. The shattered mirror was more than just a broken decoration. It was a brutal reminder that her life, once so orderly, was under siege. The man's words echoed in her mind. She's the one. But who was he? And what did he want? Back at her flat on Mill Lane, The warmth of the crackling fire did little to soothe Emily's restless mind. She sat curled on the edge of the plush sofa, the navy blue dress from the gala folded carefully beside her, its shimmer now a distant memory. Her fingers toyed nervously with the delicate pearl necklace she'd worn, the tiny spheres cool against her skin, grounding her amidst the storm. James arrived shortly after, his steps cautious as he entered. He looked uncharacteristically worn, the sharp lines of his usual confidence softened by fatigue. His tailored jacket hung loosely from his broad shoulders, and his hands trembled slightly as he poured 2 cups of tea, the steam curling upwards like wisps of hope. "We need to get ahead of this," James said quietly, handing a cup to Emily. His blue eyes searched hers, pleading for trust. "I've been digging around. That man, we think he's connected to a case Tom was working on before he left for London. Something dangerous involving some pretty nasty people." Emily took a sip, trying to steady her nerves. The warmth spread through her, but the chill in her heart remained. "Why didn't Tom tell me? Why keep me in the dark?" James shrugged, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Because Tom's a stubborn sod. Thinks he can protect everyone by handling things himself. But that's not how this works, Em. You're caught in the middle whether you like it or not." Emily glanced away, the weight of the situation pressing down. She felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't since before her wedding. The thought of Tom, the man she loved, entangled in danger she barely understood, made her stomach churn. "Then what do we do?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. James leaned forward, his expression resolute. "We watch each other's backs. And we find out who's behind this before it's too late." The days that followed were a blur of whispered phone calls, furtive meetings in shadowed corners of Ashford's quaint streets, and a growing sense of paranoia that crept into every quiet moment. Emily's once peaceful life became a delicate dance of vigilance, her emerald green dress replaced by practical jackets and sturdy boots as she prepared for whatever might come. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in hues of lavender and gold, Emily found herself walking the narrow path along the riverbank. The cool breeze tangled through her loose auburn hair, and her dark coat clung tightly to her slender figure. She felt the weight of the pearl necklace beneath her scarf, a small talisman in uncertain times. Suddenly footsteps quickened behind her. She turned sharply, heart pounding, to find James closing the distance, his face graved. "They're watching us," he said, voice low. "I spotted a car parked near your flat earlier. Same one I saw outside the cafe the other day." Emily's breath caught. "What do they want from me?" "From us?" James shook his head. "I don't know, but it's connected to Tom's case. We need to be careful." Her mind raced. Tom's absence, James's protectiveness, the mysterious man at the gala, all threads woven into a tangled web she was desperate to unravel. Just then, a sharp beep sounded from James's phone. He glanced at the screen and paled. It's a message. From someone calling themselves the Watcher. It says, "You're running out of time." Emily shivered despite the chill, the words slicing through the dusk like a knife. The game had changed, and the stakes were higher than ever. As they hurried back toward the safety of her flat, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the real danger was still waiting, lurking just beyond the shadows, ready to strike when they least expected it. And somewhere deep in her heart, a question burned hotter than fear. Could she trust James to keep her safe, or was the greatest threat closer than she dared imagine? The night wrapped Ashford in a thick, suffocating blanket of mist as Emily and James hurried along the narrow streets towards her flat. The gas lamps flickered weakly, casting elongated shadows that danced eerily on the cobblestones beneath their feet. Each step felt heavier, as if the very air conspired to slow them down, to trap them in the growing web of mystery tightening around their lives. Emily's breath came in shallow bursts, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. She wore a tailored charcoal coat that hugged her slender frame, the collar turned up against the chill, and her dark curls escaped rebelliously from the loose bun she'd hastily gathered. Her eyes, bright and alert, scanned every corner, every silhouette that flickered in the fog. The pearl necklace she always kept close was hidden beneath the scarf, a silent talisman against the unknown. James kept close, his imposing figure a reassuring presence despite the tension etched on his face. His crisp white shirt was now replaced by a dark sweater, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms that had once shielded Emily from childhood scrapes, but now seemed poised for a more dangerous kind of defense. His blue eyes flicked constantly between the street ahead and the shadows behind. "The Watcher," James muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Whoever they are, they're playing a game and we're the pieces." Emily swallowed hard, gripping the strap of her bag tighter. "But what do they want? Why me?" James shook his head, frustration flashing across his features. "I don't know. But it's connected to Tom. That much is clear. And whoever sent that message wants us scared." Off balance, they reached the faded red door of Emily's flat, the brass knocker gleaming faintly in the dim light. James pulled out his keys, the metal jangling softly in the silence. Just as the lock clicked open, a sudden sound shattered the quiet. A sharp metallic scrape against the pavement, followed by hurried footsteps retreating into the night. Emily's heart leapt. "Did you see that?" James nodded grimly. "They're close. Too close." Inside, the flat felt both comforting and confining. The soft glow of the table lamp illuminated the cozy living room, with its plush sofa and shelves lined with books and framed photographs. Yet the warmth was tinged with unease, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Emily moved to the window, peering into the darkness. "We can't stay here. If they know where I live," James placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out. But first, we need to find out who the Watcher is." Their conversation was interrupted by the shrill ring of Emily's phone. She fumbled with it, her fingers trembling, and answered on the second ring. "Emily," a distorted voice whispered, barely audible over static. "Stop digging. Or you'll regret it." The line went dead. Emily and James exchanged a look, the weight of the threat settling heavily between them. "That I'm not backing down," Emily said, voice firm despite the fear threading through it. "Not now," James nodded, admiration flickering in his eyes. "Good. Because whatever's coming, we face it together." As the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, Emily realized that the life she'd known was gone. The safety of Ashford had been shattered, replaced by a dangerous game of secrets and shadows. And at its heart was a mystery that would test the bonds of family, love, and trust. But one question lingered, darker and more urgent than the rest. Who was watching, and why had they chosen Emily? The answer, Emily knew, would change everything.